The food security portal is one of the fruits of the idea of placing policy on ground based on evidence. The center worked on social protection after COVID-19, which could ravish the poor. 2 studies have been launched since, which added further to the literature providing evidence for policy making.
And the entire theme of this exploring social protection was from the lens of evidence, that what kind of multi-tiered social protection is needed in Pakistan, what are the evidence gaps, what kind of data registry we are supposed to have, and how we can actually make the digital footprint evidence-based for these beneficiaries.
Evidence is used on an ad hoc basis. After the pandemic, appetite to consume evidence has increased. As a result, capacity to consume, generate, and produce evidence has also increased. The Ministry of Health is establishing a systematic data center for the need. Replicated at district level as basic units, this will support bureaucracy in putting together policy elements. Evidence should demonstrate impact, should be easy to understand, and implementable with visible progress. It should establish relationship, which is the long-term investment in the system. The evidence was successfully used in LESCO for adopting policy on prevention.
How do we effectively create models of engagement with the policy makers, with bureaucrats and implementers, taking their point of view into account, treating their point of view with respect, adapting their design, keeping their sensitivities and constraints in mind, and then regularly sharing feedback and data with the team in a consumable way. I think that is a very effective model that can be replicated by various data centers and by various research centers if we actually want to incorporate evidence into policy.
Realization of using evidence throughout the policy making and its implementation is more than ever with the public sector. This has increased focus on monitoring and evaluation. It is to gather reliable data for policy making at the national and the provincial level. For this, various capacity building methods were adopted through exercises and workshops, and that too at the institutional level. This is sustainable too.
We need to ensure that the right evidence is provided, and we are there as these centers to give that evidence and data, whether qualitative or quantitative, to support our governments in making the right policies for more impactful and sustainable programs.
To have evidence, we need to analyze big data. So, anecdotes and stories need to be analyzed and synthesized. It must not be generalized. Framing a relevant question is important, and it is difficult to take the question to the leader by saying that he needs to learn. There are a lot of puzzles that need to be solved. For that, one needs evidence based on a lot of big data, millions and millions of observations. We can solve it by looking at stories. This adds a spur of qualitative edge to a big data pool. This is called anecdata. We can improve data by using it more. That is why we need to use it more rather than less. It can be done by involving more and more institutions to the focus. Government institutions, think tanks, and others having an interface, the best way to create knowledge.
The journey for data to me starts with curiosity, then moves to anecdotes, but this is critical. You don't stop at anecdotes. The one thing I see in Pakistan is sometimes we are missing, and Pakistan is no exception to this. I think when you get in life, you just get busy with work, you stop, that curiosity starts dying down. So I think the first thing is to stoke that curiosity again, and then move to the anecdote version of the data, but then realize that's not sufficient. That's not generalizable. That may be your personal experience.
People use data and evidence interchangeably. Public departments have a huge data pool, but often they use it poorly. They fail to package it for policy execution. In Punjab, 13 MIS systems are working, but surprisingly, they are not talking to each other. PC1 systems are there, but the process is not used properly. So, expand slowly by working and expanding on the margins. Monitoring, evaluation, and learning is the new norm, but it is hardly available online, so the public knows little of the outcome and impact of the government's development agenda.
Every senior civil servant, whether it's a secretary or a commissioner or whatever level they're operating, they really like to monitor things, right? Because that's mostly used as a tool for controlling people, controlling resources. Not enough attention is paid on E, and I rarely have seen any effort at going to L, which is learning part.
Citizens have perception on development. Execution and implementation on development agenda is a real challenge. Subnational government intervention is important, so the procedures need to be simplified.
Now we are working with all the 4 provinces, and we have established this digital data collection mechanisms there. So the idea is to have this reliable data across indicators.
This center at SDPI can simplify research for the users in a given time by bringing other universities in the pile, creating networks. This can distill information from various sources and present to the end users in a language which media and others could understand. Ideas coming from foreign sources are not alien, so one should have linkages with other international institutions which can provide relevant knowledge in this global world.
Look at their data entry, data collection, data verification, data validation, as whether they have the standards which you can meet them and you can certify. So you can actually fill in the gaps as far as the quality of the data is concerned. Because if you take this kind of data, I cannot make head and tail out of it. I cannot say that, large scale manufacturing is receding, while when I look at the 2015-16 data of the CMI, the Punjab industrial sector has expanded 3 to 4 times. There are new industries, a new capacity, there are new activities which are coming in the large scale manufacturing. But we are using what was in 2005-6.
Broadly, the main idea is to understand the use of evidence in policy making. The center, as it grows, aims to relieve the policymakers of this burden of selecting wrong evidence.
Most of us have been practitioners. This is easier said than done, while of course respect of evidence, respect of data, information is all there. But given the era of fake news, the issues with regards to credibility of evidence and whose evidence is credible, these are all questions which really make the life of a policymaker difficult.
It is the beginning of a long journey and never ends, and that is its utility in this ever-changing world. With cameraman Husain Zaidi, I am Zaina Noor from SDTV.